So my name is Brad Laddusaw, president of the California Mortgage Association. I'm very excited to have Mr. Farzon here with 182. Little joke about this before you introduce yourself. I know you and your firm are good at what you do because when I was trying to get the calendar invite out, it was, I think, being screened a little bit. So I had to do a little workaround with Lou. So that's how I know you're good at what you do. So with that being said, would you mind introducing yourself and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. Really great to be here. Thank you for having me. We're really excited to be a part of this amazing thing you guys have got going on here. My name is Farzon Almaneih. I've been in the IT industry since 1989, and it goes way back. Yeah, I started in this industry working for an IT firm. And, it was the industry was very young. The internet was barely even people didn't even know what it was. It was just the Department of Defense, Berkeley, Stanford. And anyways, I joined an IT firm, and of course, personal computing became a really big deal. And it just zoomed up, and went from having mainframes and I know I'm dating myself here, but to personal computers being everywhere and the internet hitting the scene. So much, in fact, by 1995, you have that famous speech from Microsoft, Bill Gates saying that he really didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. And then, a year later, full take back. Right. Okay. So in 1990s, I was part of an IT firm. By 1993, I had been really skyrocketing in the company, and I became half partner. And it was a company called Beyond 2000, and we just took California by storm. Number one reseller for so many things, Cisco, Novell at the time. People don't really hear about Novell these days, but it was like the big networking company back then. And then we were also somewhat famous for building the first turnkey, one of the first turnkey web servers in the world. And that was pretty cool. I have some sort of magazine cover around here somewhere where we did that. And our direct competitor at the time was Compaq, which is HP now, right? So
Yeah.
our little company, we did pretty great. So though, towards the end of the 90s, I saw a different future for IT. And at the time, I had several partners, and they just didn't really see it the same way. It was dot com. It was a crazy time for anybody with IT was making a lot of money, and there's just unlimited POs and whatnot. And so, I had a vision for managed services. Instead of billing clients when they were having problems and when they're in crisis, likely they're losing money, and then we're making money. It just felt like it was flipped. What if we could do it? We're on the same side of the table. And what I wanted to do was get everybody. So, like, if a client is having problems, we're putting more time into it. If they're having less problems, probably we're putting less time into it, right? We're winning and losing at the same time together, and thus born the MSP. And these days, everybody hears about MSP, but it wasn't even a thing when
And,
we
and,
started it.
and when you say MSP, what do you mean by that?
Yeah,
For us
managed.
non-IT guys.
Yeah,
Oh,
managed service provider. So, without going in too long, because I could obviously talk about my business forever, but
we're gonna jump into it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna press you with questions, just
I,
more so because it's so out of my expertise. If you want to go loans, spreadsheets, valuations, I'm your guy. But when it comes to IT risk, prevention, and all that, I know enough to hurt myself. That's why I'm extremely excited for this.
sure. Well, what you can understand is building a business during a time where it was extremely lucrative. We're all billing ridiculous dollars per hour, and if you had a pulse, you probably could get a job in IT, the dot com era. And a lot of resistance from me saying, "Hey, we're going to charge clients a fixed rate per month, and we're going to give them whatever it takes to make it awesome, right? Guaranteed the satisfaction." And I had everybody tell me I was crazy, and I was like, "No, not only is this better, because that's the way I've always ran the company on purpose, and we needed to be on the same side of the table. and create really close relationships. I've always been a relationship builder. And how can I build a relationship that doesn't feel so vendor client? If we're on the same side of the table, we're winning and losing together. To me, that was the deal. And then also, as far as profitability and valuations go, this is something that you understand quite well. There's a maximum gross margin that you can reach when you're billing hours, which is the traditional IT older school way now. Now more people are doing what we do. It got really popular in the 2000s and the teens, and now it's pretty much the standard to be an MSP, a managed service provider. Essentially providing a flat rate per month fee for all your IT needs. But back then it wasn't, and I was like, "Hey, if we are very good at our job, the margins are higher."
Mhm.
And so it was like a win-win scenario for everybody, and it really took off.
I think
And
it's a interesting concept, or not. When I say interesting, kind of being ahead of the times, because to your point, if you're really good at what you do, man hours going into managing, let's say, a company like mine, in theory, should be done as long as I'm following the rules
Mhm,
on that. And then you're preventing me from being in some potentially disastrous situations where I would be paying astronomically more if
mhm,
that were to occur. So I'm
that's
okay
right.
paying the monthly, let's call it subscription fee for your services at a rate, X rate. And it's, to your point, a win-win because we have a higher level of confidence. And in theory, we're reducing the chances of being in that doomsday situation, which I'm sure we're going to be jumping into some case studies a little bit here on what you've seen, and then now how it's more widely accepted. And that's 182. When did you start 182? Is this in the late
Yeah,
90s or
in 1999, I started this company. I sold my interest in my last company, started 182. We hit the ground running, and when I sold my interest to my partners, I took my favorite client, and I built a business around it, and, we grew from there. And, and our success over the years has been around our pillars and our culture. So, for example, when people think of IT, they think of it like, and I don't blame them. It's just natural. It's human, right? So many IT people are saying like, "Oh, you're not doing it right," or "You should be thinking like this," and all that kind of direction. I've never, and either has my team, ever seen it that way. Computers need to work for the person, for the company. The workflow needs to the computing needs to work around the workflow and not the other way around. We all have to make some concessions because the limitation of technology, which is changing a lot now. But at the end of the day, the technology needs to work for the company and for the workflow of the company and the individual. And so when you focus that way, managed services becomes really a logical step because when you buy a computer, it's like, oh, I bought the computer, someone installs it, it's done, right? No, it's not done. It actually requires, um, back then, it would be like, hey, you need to do like your patching, your backups, your updates and whatnot. Okay. And then, user questions and that kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff that was mostly the work back then. But today, it's 24 hours a day security monitoring and response. So what most people don't realize is your computer is being attacked constantly. It's all the time. Your email, your computer, your domain, um, it's constantly under a threat, and you have people like ourselves who are defending that. So I think like okay, so for example, we had and hopefully I'm not digressing here too
no? I
much.
want you. I'm
Mm,
taking it all in because I do. Before we jump into this, I want to go back to the 90s
Sure.
again for how quickly the computing power was changing
Mhm,
and
mhm.
moving. What was in your very early conversations with the company you're at before you sold your interest, as these companies were blowing up and before the dot-com boom, was in the very early days, was IT risk a concern, or was it, "We gotta get to market with these items as quickly as possible," and then once we got things going, we're like, oh crap, there's some open doors here that are opening users up for risk. Or I'm always
Sure.
curious on that if that was similar to like AI. In the beginning of AI, everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to be great," but then it's like, "Oh, it's creating some potential risks utilizing AI." I'm just curious how it was, how the conversations were in the '90s, in the early days.
Yeah. So in the 90s, especially before I started my company, my last company beyond 2000, we had clients like Wells Fargo, Visa, you know, uh, 10 core, okay. Like we built 10 cores original systems, they had all of our computers and whatnot. So what was happening is you went from the 80s, which was more of a mainframe configuration, which most people don't even know what that is, but it's like kind of like a centralized computer with just like monitors connected
Yeah,
to the personal computer um, iteration of the industry, and people wanted deployment. They wanted to take advantage of that. To give you an example, in the early '90s, one of the huge things for like law firms or financial services companies was faxing, and faxing was a huge thing. And we had the whole issue where you have 20 fax lines, and all the faxes come to like a machine, and then someone's got to deal with all that paperwork. And we would do things like digitize all that. You put it, as like a modem bank and server. I'm not trying to get too technical here, but
yeah.
basically all the faxes would come digitally and then get automatically routed to the person it belongs to. And that was huge. That was like a
Similar to
game
like scanning
changer.
in for a PDF form right now. This is
Yeah.
like pre-PDF days, but same concept,
Yes.
less efficient.
Yeah. So in the 90s, it was more like, hey, wow, we can do all this technology. And especially small business and medium-sized business, they could now do things that only the largest of corporations could afford to do using personal computer technology and networking. And obviously, the internet came onto the scene, and everything along with that, like selling your products online, having support online. These are all things that just didn't exist before that.
AOL chat,
Yeah,
like just little things.
yeah, exactly. So, s- and then getting back to your question there, was security in the mindset? Yes. What would happen is companies would have failures, and that's when they would learn that where they were weak. Okay, it happened to a lot of people, and eventually people got caught on to other things they needed, like for example, server redundancies, hardware redundancies, and then backup systems. It was backups were like a really big deal in the '90s because you know the security of the company. That was like the main security was pretty much that. You had a little bit of antivirus concern. We had what was the old famous Stone virus. There was a few of those, and people on AOL getting viruses and whatnot. But it wasn't really honestly that big of a deal when it comes to that sort of security. It was more of like securing the systems from a if it fails, redundancy kind of thing. It, around the 2000s, um, that's when it started getting a lot more serious on the cybersecurity standpoint. Maybe like late '90s, and so like for example, today a lot of people have heard this buzzword. They don't really know what it means, but zero trust is like a thing a lot of people are talking about right now. We were doing that in 2001
And
because
explain zero trust. What is that exactly?
yeah. So, you get a computer, you install, you get it from Best Buy or whatever. Let's just say, pretend, I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
It's just like you got full access to everything. It's your computer. Most computers, most devices come that way. And the problem is that a lot of the things that we do, the programs, the internet has an ability to attack you. And so if you're like, let's say, full access to your device, not someone could be like you can send you an email or send you a file or a Word document or Excel file, and it could literally completely take over your computer and you wouldn't even know it because you have the full access to your computer. So what happens is with zero trust is we reconfigure the whole architecture of how you use your IT environment with what we call least trusted access. Okay, least privilege access. What that means is we only give access to the things that you absolutely need and how you need it. And by the way, this aligns perfectly with compliance, which many of us are required to be uh, compliant with. And so what happens is we, a lot of IT people don't like to do it. That's why so many companies are out of compliance and they have the cybersecurity issues they have. Is yeah, it's a lot of work. And it means like, for example, ever been at work at a company, and I'm sure everybody's heard of it, where they wanted to install the new program and they couldn't, and they had to get IT to give them approval, and they had to go through all these steps, and it took 3 months when it could have taken 30 seconds to install it.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard of those scenarios, but there's a reason for that. That obviously we don't do that for our clients. We approve things and solve those kind of things almost within minutes. But the reality is the reason why that happens is because least privilege access is being implemented. So, example, you've heard the scenario where somebody who shouldn't have had access to HR files had access to HR files, right? So, from a very simple standpoint, it's like, okay, make sure only HR people can access the HR files, and sales people can access the sales files, and whatnot. But it really is a lot more in depth than that.
I think that it's a very good point there. I mean, HR also translates to, let's say, proprietary information or
Yeah,
trade secrets,
exactly.
where you don't have proper control procedures in place for that. If you don't, and a lot of people have access, those NDAs you have might be worthless because you did not take the steps to actually protect proprietary information. If it was proprietary, you should have these control measures in place, whether it's investor lists, strategy. So it's full spectrum as it pertains to that type of access.
I can give you a real life example of that.
Oh, that's my next question. There we go.
Okay, so I can obviously can't name the company,
Of course not.
but a very, very well known company. What was named one of the hottest companies for a longest time, San Francisco based, and they made this incredible technology, and they they hired us. They're like, we don't understand why it is our greatest competitor. The day before we release any product, they release almost exact version of it. Can you imagine that? We're talking like, hundreds of millions of dollars being spent,
On R&D
ready to
and
launch a
everything. Yeah.
product,
Oh,
and then their competitor, and obviously they would lawsuits and all that. Doesn't matter. The damage is done, especially in the market they're in, extremely hot and very competitive. And investors just throwing money at it. Sand Hill Road right there, and so it was really frustrating them. So here's how this works out. Okay. So they had, I think it was like box.com or Dropbox. That's how they were sharing files. And they had a vendor they worked with, which everybody usually has vendors they work with,
yeah.
who they shared a folder with. And they did a lot of projects together, and that needed to happen. Okay. So the project files in this folder shared between two companies, very common thing,
Yeah.
except that vendor got bought out by their competitor. Okay. And it was one of those scenarios where there was no documentation, no access control. The users had the ability to share stuff. Everybody wants to be able to share
Yeah,
stuff.
here's a link, share the link, they spread it out, and they all get access to.
That's right. And then, probably the person who shared it probably didn't even work there anymore. I forget the exact details on that. But so what had happened, it was like the share happened 3 years ago. A year ago, the vendor got bought out. Obviously, stopped using that vendor, but they forgot the share was happening. So basically, they're sharing all their IP with their greatest competitor, and so they had full access.
It's like almost the competitor probably knew who they're acquiring and hoping something was. I'm not going down conspiracy list.
I'd
Right.
like to. I'd like to think that people don't operate that way, but I don't even look. I'm not an attorney, but I don't even know the legality of that because they bought the partner who probably had some sort of agreement that they could
Yeah,
access these files. So from I don't know. So maybe they could read those things.
no,
I don't know,
and
but we solved that. We identified that and we stopped that. And it wasn't just about solving the problem in the instant. And this really comes back to the managed services that I was talking about earlier. It's not something you do something and it's done. Because if you do that way, it's just going to come back. And there's exponential ways that security can be broken and great harm can happen. There's a lot of ways that harm can happen, and it's about an ongoing architecture that keeps things secure. And so that's why security professionals are working so hard. And it is, an extremely difficult job. It's a 24-hour job, 7 days a week. There is no, not working when it comes to cybersecurity
yeah,
because the attacks and things like this are constant.
are constant. So I want to jump into, and then we're going to go into some more because you hit a few things I want to follow up on, but I want to go more into your company,
Sure.
182, and the types of clients you are servicing.
Hmm.
Are you looking? Do you service small operations? Are you targeting only larger operations? Are you specific to only certain types of industries? What's been your target on the types of clients that are coming to you for help?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think having a target market, I think businesses that don't are really not servicing themselves, their clients, and really their employees well. When you have a really distinct target market, it allows you to really become close and understand those small details that make all the difference. And so for us, we focus on three industries that are actually very similar when it comes from a technology standpoint, where we focus on legal, accounting, and boutique financial services firms. So, boutique financial services being like private lending and whatnot. Okay, and so those three industries, from an IT perspective, are very similar. And the ones we focus is small and medium businesses. So we've had clients as large as 700 people, but our sweet spot is around 50 to 100 employee companies. These are businesses that are doing really important work. They have really important clients, and they are completely underserved. A lot of them don't even know they have to be compliant. They didn't even know. They have cyber. Everybody wants their information, right? Like, okay, you take let's talk about a family law firm. Family law firms do discovery and a divorce. Every financial account, not just the personal. If someone's a business owner or stakeholder or whatever, I mean, everything they have. You take an accounting firm, obviously, tax and financials, and private lending. Just think about that. All the documents and information that's there. Not just the customers that they serve, but really, how about the investors and the investors they want to have? So it's a very similar market for us.
No,
So the way they
I
got to
like
be managed.
yeah, and then that allows you. I'm sure there are a few nuances that are industry specific, but
Yeah.
then the major risk profile. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap, which allows. Well, what's the phrase? Um, I forget. Um, about being trying to do too much and just not experience. What is it? Um, good at everything and an expert in nothing. I forget
Yeah.
that. I forget the phrase on it. I'm dropping the ball
Yes.
'cause I use it every other day because I say bridge loans are all we do. We don't try and do everything under the
Exactly.
sun, but I'm falling flat on that wavelength there. But I think your firm being hyper focused in those industries because those industries have certain types of risks. To your point, are always hitting our companies, and we're putting our reliance potential on you to stay ahead of those future risks that are coming down the pipe, as well. So, how do you guys stay ahead of it without divulging any secrets? But when it pertains to risk mitigation and all that, because it's constantly changing, AI scare part of my French scares the shit out of me on just the voice overlays they can do, the impersonations, the how real it is. Um, ha how do you guys handle these changes? Because they happen, I feel like, overnight. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
there's a new case study, and I was like, "I didn't
Mhm.
even know that was an issue."
Yeah, it's it's a momentum thing. You see, I do feel, bad for people who are maybe just getting in and they don't have, you know, the wealth of, like, people they work with that might have, the history and understand how things are and a culture of a company that, that knows the past and how things got to where they are, okay? Because the momentum is like this, right? There's every day reading the articles you need to read and being tied into where all the first reports of issues are. But you have to know where those are, and the way you know where those are is you got to be in the groups of people. Right? You have to have all these relationships that ties you in, right? Because that's a moving thing. Okay, so for example, one of the conferences we go to um, is the only way that I knew that thing existed was because of a relationship I had for 20 years prior to that. Um, uh, it it becomes really important to not only receive information in that and also but be part of that community, right? So to be current with stuff it requires being part of the community and actively taking part and people seeing you as part of it and collaborating with you because then you start getting those phone calls in the middle of the night, hey, new thing happened, right?
Mhm.
So if you're not getting those phone calls, you're just responding to it when you see it hit the news,
Yeah,
and
and
that's not helping so
and
much.
I kinda compare that to, I mean, the loan business. We're
Mhm,
in the private lending industry, we go to CMA conferences, education, compliance, best practices, advocacy. That's what we're always pushing, but our members are constantly sharing the doomsday scenarios they've gone through from an underwriting perspective. Like, "Hey, here's something that popped up from a fraud, uh, angle that now we've implemented this new underwriting procedure." And I feel
mhm.
like it's the same type of community you have, on the IT side to where, "Hey, Farzan, this just happened. It hasn't been announced yet. Like, this is what we heard. It's happening to one of our clients. Here's some steps that we're doing," or I'm sure they call you and like, what's an angle? What's something we can implement? And it's kind of more of a, you're all competitors, but you're part of the same industry. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's touch on that for a second. So, I am part of a group of other companies just like mine. You could call them competitors, but we really don't see ourselves that way, and it's basically the top MSPs, IT firms in the country, and we get together often. So, I get together every single week with a smaller group, and it's really collaborative. We're always talking about everything, and it's in a Zoom. And then I get together 8 times a year in person with these same people, and we're literally in meeting rooms. It's all CEOs, and we are, talking about what's going on, what we see happening, what's coming. And, it's that kind of collaboration that really separates. Let's let's kind of step back a little bit though. While that's really important, but another really important pillar is the culture of your company. It's so critically important to have the right people working for you. I'm sure you know that. And you gotta have people that have the passion. They have to like really have the love for the business and what it means, like what they do and what that ends up meaning for the clients that we serve. You gotta have people that, they believe their purpose is to serve in this world, as I do.
yeah,
And when you have that perspective, everything else can fall into place. If I have someone with the right mindset who is willing to learn, as cult- culturally fits, I can teach them. But you can't teach someone culture.
yeah,
You can't give them that drive and that care. That's something that they either have it or they don't. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that, and they're looking for, "Oh, I need someone that can do this, do that, da 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 da." Very project based, "Hey, I need this thing built or done." And when the reality is, if you build the right culture in a company, if you get the right people in, the company should be so strong that you can train, build up, and have support systems. And then you have the right kind of people because you can't train every little thing. You need the people who have that eye, who have that care, um, who are enthusiastic and passionate about it. They will find the things,
And
not
and I
the
and I
mass.
and I think it's also just whether you're in IT, you're in sales, you are a server, you're in accounts payable. We are all, believe it or not, in the people business. We have to work with our teams. Might be client facing. We don't expect to be, and just explaining things internally. That is, um, it's we're all there, and to your point, having the right people, whether we are in IT, there's going to be a time when we need to explain something or have a conversation, or we're going to be putting in the hours because something's going down hot and heavy, and we need to figure it out, and we need to have calm heads will always prevail, but it's like, how do you handle these situations? And some things you can't teach. You can't teach someone how to keep a cool head and attitude in a high pressure situation. I think till some people just have it, or they don't. And it's you can't teach someone not to wear their emotions on their sleeve. That's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it goes back down to the culture. You could have one bad person who's a great person and good at what they do, but potentially the way they handle certain situations can drag down the mindset of the team without them even realizing it. And as an owner of a company and a leader, that's something that you probably spend a lot of time and have your upper management kind of keeping an eye on that because it all comes down to the culture, and I think that's part of it.
Absolutely. Really, lots of great points there, and it does speak to being a principal in your company and mine. Clearly we have a lot of the same philosophies, and we connect there. So about 25 years ago, I started teaching my team, look, hey, we are a customer service company that just happens to do IT. That
Yeah.
it's really the case. It's really we founded this company on being a white glove IT service, and we are still to this day, and it's huge. It's being really connected to your clients, caring and putting that passion, and seeing past the thing that's being asked of you now and anticipating the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's not just like necessarily these big strategy things either, which that's one of our core values is we are a partner. We're not just fixing things, but it really is down to even the small things. When one of my team is working with a person and they have a question, or hey, I got this presentation I got to do, and taking the extra steps and helping them on something that maybe they haven't even asked yet, and that really makes all the difference.
And I think it's having the team that can be proactive as well. Let's go
Mhm.
to I didn't think I was gonna drill down on this, but during COVID, I mean, companies and their operations from an IT perspective really got turned upside down.
Yeah.
It's a lot of firms that are everyone's in the office, not a lot of stuff is potentially cloud-based yet, might be on their servers, and they can maybe survive a couple weeks being shut down, but after that, it's like, "Okay, we need to kinda get the lights going back on. How do we have team or employees be remote that were always in the office? What does this look like with laptops, especially in the financial services?" And how was that for your team once I don't like using the term "the dust settled" because everyone was affected differently during COVID, but once businesses are like, "Alright, we need to start going again, but we can't have people in the office." Were they calling you guys and saying, What do we do? How do we go about this?" Or was it some on your team? It's like, "Hey, I know you guys are gonna get going. Here's some steps we can do." Can you share a little bit of how that was and what steps your team took to make sure your clients were taken care of?
Absolutely.
Because that's like a disaster plan type situation where um, no one plans for, but having a team such as yours, I think, kind of helps navigate uh, that situation.
Yeah. So we've always been a cloud first company. Even before cloud was coined a cloud, uh, we've been a cloud first company. We were building private clouds in the late 90s.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So like, these days we have a client that a lot, especially uh, the financial services companies, they end up having a server still. We get them out of all that. And so a lot of our clients were already very well positioned.
hmm,
Okay. But one of the things that we did, well, first of all, I want to say that we were on the beginning of this all. So we knew in January something was coming. We were way ahead. We were preparing. Like who knew for sure it was going to fall down like that? But we had a pretty strong feeling it was coming, and we have to have contingencies in our business. So we were really ready. Immediately when it all started kicking off, we communicated to every single client. Being one of our core values is we are a community, and we told them, well, we would remote enable all our companies for free, and we
wow.
did. And why did we do that? Because this was a seriously drastic and unique time in the world. And we, look around and businesses were about to fall flat in every single direction. This is our community. And this is something we could do. It was very busy. It was a very, very, very busy time for us. But we literally converted all of our clients to remote almost, it wasn't instantly, but we immediately went full go on that. And I can tell you that every single one of our clients prevailed to that, all of them. And also, from an internal company standpoint, we have for a very long time run under certain kinds of management principles and operational principles. I remember in 2010, one of my mentors, Gary Pica, he's absolutely, fantastic in this industry, very famous. And I also see him a few times a year to this day. And he recommended to me to read a book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And he didn't just recommend it. I got to meet Vern Harnish, who wrote the book. Very
Oh,
famous
wow.
guy, ran or maybe still runs the Gazelles. I
Okay.
think. Yeah. Okay. So very famous, Schwab, Nike, everybody uses them. Very, very famous company. And then one of his team members spun off and started something called EOS that a lot of people are very excited about. Right. Okay. So same ideas like EOS, but it was just before that in the same crew. And having business rhythms within the company, things like a daily huddle and having meeting structure and smart goals and all this synchronization and whatnot. Our company was already built to deal with everybody working from home. It was we as an internal company, we didn't even skip a beat because and I give credit to these business rhythms that we had been building at that time for is that 11 years, and it made a huge, huge difference. And it also allowed us to help our clients adopt some of those same principles so they could make it work for them. Because, managing your internal employee versus someone who's remote at home, that was a huge trick for a lot of people and still is to this day,
Yeah.
right? A lot of companies want their employees back in the office. Um,
I have my opinions on why some are pushing harder than others. It's a little bit said this a few years ago. I think Disney was the first to announce people start coming back to the office, and I was like, I think that's a PR move because if people quit, they don't have to announce as large of amount of layoffs on some of these larger companies. But I think maintaining the culture for some, and I think you guys sounds like I've done a fascinating job on already having the remote mindset and infrastructure in place, but maintaining that company culture, and that's hard to do from some, let's call it the old guard, the old business leaders, where they're just used to being in the office and they just like seeing bodies in the seats. whether they're productive or not. They want to say, I have a team of X in the office at any given point in time. Whereas, hey, maybe that might not be the most productive. I do see risk with being 100% remote if you don't have the right team. But that goes on the leaders to have the right team for that.
Yeah. And look, I gotta tell you, I really agree with being back at the office, and main reason is I'm just a people person. I love hearing the phone call. Like, I wanna hear that support call coming in, and I'm, like, listening to it, I might even have, like, a little feedback I can give in chat while they're talking on the phone.
Yeah.
I am that kind of leader. I love being in the middle of the action and, just rubbing elbows with people is fantastic, but I also really appreciate, the hybrid, work, approach, also just the fully remote. There's benefits in all of it. Personally, I love being around people. So, but I do manage the company in all three of those configurations. And I think um, that a lot of companies are doing the same. And I respect all of them.
Yeah.
There's just pluses and minuses. But if someone wants to ask to meet me, like, hey, let's do a Zoom, I'm like, hey, can we do it in person?
I'm the
I'm not,
same way.
yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah.
Shaking hands and kissing babies. It's just nice to have a conversation in
Yeah.
person and shake that person's hand, ask them some tough questions in person. And it's like I said earlier, we're all very much in the people business, whether we believe it or not. And it's fun. It's fun sitting down. Uh,
And it humanizes it. You see,
yes.
we're all working and there's these businesses and there's numbers, KPIs, all this kind of stuff that, quarterly earnings reports, everything. And, when you're looking through a screen, the human factor, uh, I don't think anybody could disagree with me. It reduces. And when you're with someone, in physical space together, there's a connection that happens.
Yeah. Very true. And I don't mean to do a tangent, but I remember what I was trying to say, and it was frustrating me. Being a jack of all trades or an expert at nothing. So
Hmm.
it's
Right,
okay. I
right.
feel better now. I'll be able to sleep at night. I won't wake up at 2 in the morning and say, that's what I was trying to say. I want to ask you how it works potentially engaging your company for your services. Let's say you have a does a company reach out to someone on your team, and what does that initial process look like? Because I'm sure it's not just, "Hey, Brad, sounds great. We could sign you up tomorrow." Is there
No, we
more
don't
of
do that.
like
Yeah.
more of like an interviewing, getting to know our business, see where the risks are at, and then kind of customizing a package for our company? Would you mind walking us through how that works?
Yes. Well, first of all, I wanna say that our pricing is consistent.
We'll keep
So
pricing out, but it's all, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah,
but I
okay,
think it's really
okay,
important because a lot of people in this industry, they feel like they're worried about if they it's the pricing matters. Everybody cares about their dollars, but it's like they want it to feel fair. So one of the things we really pride on is our pricing is consistent. Doesn't matter if you're small, big, whatever. Okay. But so here's what the engagement is. It's our job to make that really easy. And what I can tell you is we, the city isn't built overnight.
yeah,
And I can tell you that so many people I have met with, they haven't become clients. We have lots of them do become clients, some of those, but many of them don't. And that's actually, it's been our way for 26 years. So what we do, so when someone engages with us, we want to help. That's our primary goal. We want to help. So what we like to do is first of all, I'd love to be in person. Okay.
I like it.
Any chance I can meet in person. So it usually starts with a phone call or email. We get on a quick call, like, hey, just introduce each other, quick little, what the basics are. But as soon as I can, I like to go and meet in person. And my goal that first meeting is to talk with another business owner or, a key individual of the company and understand, why are we meeting? Is there some news? Are you moving locations? You trying to start a new department? You having problems? You're concerned about security or compliance. All kinds of reasons people want to meet. And I really understand the business. As a matter of fact, I usually ask they'll walk me through their company. I mean, if they have a production line, anything, I want to understand. I want to see the people. Like I want to talk to people if I can. want to understand their business completely. Sometimes it's only 15 minutes. So it's like, here's some high level issues, da 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 da, right?
Yeah.
But as business owners, we can have those conversations quite quickly too. But sometimes it's more in depth. It could be half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. And from there, we'll have learned a few things about each other. I learn about their company, talk about my company and the kind of things we do. The way we usually like to do it is talk about the things we've done for clients. So we can associate what their issue is and like, okay, so well, here's an example of how that problem is solved over here. And if that sounds interesting, then we go, okay, well, let's take the next step in going further in knowing each other. So in a nutshell, we help people out. I can tell you that if I haven't at least given 3 great ideas that someone could take back and actually make changes in their company from meeting with me, I don't it's not a successful meeting for me. So, and that's the way we explain it. Like, I'm gonna come, I'm gonna show you, some perspective on your environment, things you could do, stuff that you could actually take and make changes today, right?
Mhm.
That perspective is how I build a relationship. People always appreciate meeting with me, and not all those become clients, but along the way, some of them do. Even some people we've met with who haven't become clients, they referred us to people that become our
I
clients.
was just gonna say, I mean, I've had so many meetings with someone that's like, I know as the sun will come up tomorrow, I'm gonna do deals with him in the future. We're going on 7 years, haven't done a deal with him, but a great referral source. So it's kind of
Right.
it all comes full circle. And it's providing value before trying to just say, "Hey, what can you do for me as of yesterday?" And I feel
Yeah.
that's the mindset with some out there, and it's it's short-sighted, so it's refreshing to hear your approach with your clients to really get to know them and their businesses, and, hey, it's a two-way street. It We might not be the right fit for you, wrong industry, too small, or whatever it may be, or there just might be a personality clash. That's okay, but having the in person, like, that is an important part, and taking the time to actually answer questions and then also ask them. Again, I really feel it's a two-way street on that, and any service provider.
Yeah. And look, great points. And when has it ever been bad where two business professionals sit down and get to know each other and do a little bit of networking? It's always a benefit. I come every single meeting I've ever been to, I've come back with so much knowledge. And I think that also puts us, I do feel really privileged. I've met with so many companies and so many brilliant people, and I've learned about so many ways. There's so many ways to do the same industry. It's interesting and it's brilliant. And then you know be able to provide a perspective to them so they could make some changes. And then some of those become clients.
Yeah.
So I feel like we wouldn't do this conversation here full service without touching on AI because it's such a hot
Oh,
topic right
it
now.
it's I that's my next question after the next one because I wanna
Okay,
jump
got
on
it.
that, and that's I wrote down because you say you have your sit downs, you guys discuss what's going on and also discuss what's potentially coming down the pipe, and I think
Mhm.
we're kind of right in the middle of that with AI and what's coming. But I do wanna ask you a question that a recommendation you will have. You say you have a new company that's starting in the private lending industry.
Mhm.
They're gonna have a team of 3. Um, they're all gonna be on laptops, hybrid, sometimes working at home. They're out in the field a lot, on their computers. What would be the first 3 steps you recommend they do from an IT's perspective, with their company, on risk mitigation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I didn't give you this one ahead of time, so I was
that
just
yeah,
I just based on
actually,
what
I
you're
don't think you
saying.
gave me anything ahead of
No,
time,
I
right?
didn't. But remember when I showed you the sheet? It's like, here's the preps, and then now it's only just my notes on, follow-up questions. So, I know you're experienced and knowledgeable, so I appreciate, you answering these.
No, I love it just like this. Honestly, I prefer it like this because, you know, it's just I like your style. I really appreciate the way you approach this.
Thank you.
And we're in a time where authenticity becomes the most important thing anyways. Right. And so it's so much better to do things off the cuff, I think. Yeah, this is a really good format. I like this a lot.
little organized chaos, I like to call it.
Yeah.
So
Okay, to answer your question, let's say, private lender, 3 people.
new company, 3 people. Going to be using private investors, and of course, we're going to have borrower information. What would be the first 3 steps you recommend that new company do as it pertains to IT and
Okay.
setup and making sure they're somewhat secured? Loaded question. I know it's far more than 3, but what would be the first 3 steps other than call you guys?
Oh, so that was gonna be my first answer. You just stole it. I was gonna say call us.
That'll be number 4.
Okay, so look, so every company needs to have a very strong infrastructure, at the very least, a minimal protection. So that's gonna be like, for example, have a very secure computer setup, like the right kind of security programs on there. When you're a 3-person company, if you're not with a company like mine, you wouldn't really have access to the kind of technologies we have, but it'd be about having a pretty strong security there. Look, it's really not a good idea, to be honest, what you're talking about, especially this industry, because without engaging with a company like ours, you're out of compliance, even at a one-person shop, and there's tremendous requirements, and the risk is extreme, because if there is like everybody's doing, they're working away. Oh shoot, cybersecurity issue. Now you have all these mandatory reporting requirements. That's when the compliance comes in the hammer.
Mhm.
That's when the hammer happens. And it's like, did you do this? Did you do that? Yeah, and then cybersecurity insurance and whatnot. So okay, here's what I'd say. Very solid endpoint security tool. Okay. On the computers. Microsoft Defender is actually quite good. To get the proper Microsoft Defender, I'd make sure you have Microsoft 365. I know a lot of people are very excited about Google. Google's great and everything, but they can't touch Microsoft in the way an infrastructure is put together, in my opinion. So when you have Microsoft 365 with at least Business Premium, and you buy some computers and you connect to it, it's going to automatically upgrade the Windows Defender on this computer, which is basically the antivirus security program.
Got it.
And so what's going to happen is you're going to have somewhat of a secure Microsoft platform, which is your email and your documents and, and all that kind of Microsoft Teams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're going to also, it's going to upgrade the computers to be a bunch more secure. And then the third thing I would do is make sure wherever you're storing your files is always online and those are backed up. And here's a little tip. Everybody thinks that stuff's in the cloud, it must be backed up. It's not. And if you just do a cursory look, you could do a Google search or ask AI. There's been numerous times people have lost their data, and you got Google and Microsoft going, sorry, um, there's no recourse. And so endpoint security tools, Microsoft 365, because you're going to need email and everything else, and it provides extra security and a backup.
And a backup, and in that backup, is that like, to your point, everyone thinks, "Oh, I did my backup to the cloud, so
Mhm.
it's there," and on the compliance side, we are required to hold, as a lender, information for X amount of years and all that, so if that
Mhm.
is wiped and not backed up, you don't have access, that can be a pretty big issue especially for how very few hard documents people maintain on their underwriting files these days versus in the past there. And with a file backup, what's the most economical uh, backup type service that someone could use?
Well,
Because some things just going to the cloud is backing it up, which it's clearly not. Is it doing it to like the Microsoft OneDrive? But that's cloud, right? So it's not necessarily backing up there to what you're saying. Are you talking about having it like on a backed up on a hard drive and held off, or what do you mean by backup?
well, I mean, look, I'm not going to be against backing up things to a hard drive, but what I would do is if your computer is bought, connected to Microsoft 365 with the business premium license, what you're gonna have is OneDrive is gonna be configured to automatically sync your desktop, where it's just 3
Yeah.
checkboxes. It's really takes seconds to do it. Your desktop, your documents, and your pictures is gonna be backed up to OneDrive. That's not what I mean by backup,
Yeah.
okay? But you should always have your files in your desktop, your documents, or
Yeah.
pictures. Most people don't use the pictures thing. But so that's not what I would consider a backup. I would just be calling that having your files in the cloud, which is good. It's really great for a start. Then the backup I would mean would be something that backs up your Microsoft to a third party service. It's not Microsoft.
Got it. And that would be not
Oh,
to
yeah.
do the
So
plug, that's kind of where a service you guys
yes, and
provide.
that would be a service that we provide. I couldn't tell you non. I wouldn't be able to tell you like the consumer market version of that because we just don't even consider it.
Yeah.
Right. So like a client that's doing business with us, they would just automatically get it. We
Yeah, and
won't
I think that
we
goes in the
won't work with
marketing
them.
of these cloud services. Is back everything up to the cloud. You're gonna be backed up, and it's I think you make a very good point where I would say probably 99% of our members and lenders out there probably didn't realize that's not a true formal backup, and there's a lot of instances where that is has not been the case. Uh,
Yeah, let me give you another perspective that your listeners can hook into. When they say 7 years, they don't mean 7 years worth of files. They mean that you need to be able to go to a point in time all the way 7 years back.
yeah,
So, if you have 7 years of the files and someone, you're one of your teammates he's hired, they're just not very good at computers or whatever, by accident, they delete a folder, that folder's gone.
yeah,
And the 7 years is not there. That's not the compliance that they're talking about. They're talking about a separate system that backs it up that you could go, okay, May 2025, May 1st, 2025, what was in this folder? You got to be able to get that back. It doesn't matter
yeah.
what someone did today. Okay. So they're point in time backups. And that's what the 7 year thing is. And people misunderstand that.
I
But
I I would say a lot misunderstand that. And then I told you an hour ago fast. We're gonna run over if you still have time
yeah,
because
sure.
because I
No
do want
problem.
to touch on where you're bringing up and what I was gonna wanted to chat with you as well on what's coming next, what's coming down the pipe. And I think that's a nice lead right into AI. And I know
Hmm.
you wanted to touch on that, as did I. So before I rudely cut you off a few minutes ago, what do we have coming down uh, on the AI side of things? And
Yeah, for sure.
what is your team implementing to protect your clients from some of those risks? I'm sure there are some risks with it.
Yeah, there's loads. So first of all, we are an IT managed service company. We have 4 pillars: IT, cybersecurity, compliance, and AI. We've been part of the AI thing since AI started. And as a matter of fact, AI started as we know it today was November 2022. Okay. When OpenAI, and I was one of the first to get on it. And and I'll never forget. I have a pretty good social group, and we're all got together for barbecue. And I'm kind of a social guy, and I talk to all my friends. I'm pretty, chatty, and I was really quiet. And my friends were like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know how to explain this to you, but the world as we know it just changed." And that was when I checked out ChatGPT for the very first time, and I was just completely. It was like I didn't even know how to talk to my friends right because the future just changed right there. And
Yeah,
it has. And it has, and it's gonna exponentially happen. It's not a doomsday thing, but it's definitely changes. Now, when it comes to AI, what I can tell you is not only were we on it then, I wrote my own, like, not AI as we know it today, very rudimentary, basic, but I wrote my own AI over 20 years ago. So I have a pretty good understanding of the basics when
yeah,
it comes to that. So with modern AI, um, we're fully experts. Okay, but I wouldn't be able to write OpenAI or anything like that. I want to misrepresent here.
Yeah,
Okay, that is not even close. Like that is just the people who are just absolutely the brilliance is on. It's amazing.
yeah,
Okay, so but we are experts in AI, and we've been in the game for a while now. Well, people say they've been in it for years. Well, it can't be that long because it just was born as we know it. So, where this comes into play is AI is solving a lot of problems that technology really just wasn't solving well. And if you could solve it, it was really expensive. Basically, if you wanted to, let's say, automate a workflow with your software, you anything from booking an airline ticket to whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, large companies could really afford to write hire programmers to write automation that would
yeah,
just figure out every little thing. And then every time there was a change in any of the softwares, they go rewrite it all to work with the changes. Okay. This is where AI comes into play. Now we can do automation where there's a brain on it. And so it can make decisions that just wasn't possible with automation before. So, and it's really smart. For example, we have a client that like all this stuff off PDF and put into Salesforce. Well, those PDFs change. If you're a large corporation of the past before AI, every time, every kind of scenario that a PDF could come, you'd have to pre-figure that out, and you would have to exactly figure out where they go. And if you're trying to
mhm,
pull the data off of it and get into
yeah,
Salesforce, right? Today, we don't need to do that. We could pretty much have almost anything come through, and with AI built the right way through like our automations that we do for clients, we can just figure it out. And if we can't figure it out with like a very high accuracy, we can do something called human in the middle and say, "Hey, verify this," and then
yeah.
it takes it from there. Okay, so that's how I see the future is a lot of processes, and I mean a lot, are going to be automated. Things that, a lot of the busy work that a lot of people do are just going to go away. And it's really great because while a lot of people are really scared that people are going to lose their jobs and be replaced and whatnot, I see this differently. We see AI as a multiplier. So take your workforce, remove all those little things that, that can be automated, and then they get to focus more on their clients, closing more deals, enriching their service. It's incredible. And that's really how AI, I see, over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to see this like adoption, massive adoption where people are going to be able to do more than they could do before.
Yeah, uh,
In
I agree,
higher
and
quality.
and then even on the when you look at mundane tasks, let's call it use my AP example from earlier and having AI and your example with PDFs. A lot of data entry doing stuff, and with
Mhm.
the accounting softwares now, them implementing AI to where you could send an email to your accounting software, with an invoice. It'll read it, set it up, hit the proper accounts, and then you kinda have the human in the middle, which you're
Mhm.
didn't know that was a term, but it actually makes a lot of sense to where
Mhm.
it puts your data entry clerk into a review position, which in turn can have your manager or higher up be doing something that is a lot more productive, in that instance. And then when it comes to the approval for that payment, you could set up your still controls in place in this remote landscape for accounting to where you could have your control tell my CPA it's kind of fun doing seeing this that we get to utilize. My business partner doesn't like it, but I like it. So you could have your controls in place, could review everything's good, approve it, and then you could have the integrated bill pay as well to where now the check goes out, and it's all effectively remote and started with the AI reading it, uploading it, coding it to the proper expense. You still want to review it because it's still most of these are still kind of in beta from what I've seen. But the time it takes from originally have to enter it, then review it, do your batch of checks, get them out, sign them. You could still have the same control procedures in place, and to your point, it's a multiplier.
That's right. And I got to tell you, just from what you just described, you're going to do very well in the AI era. See, you're thinking the way AI is for the future. And a lot of people don't think that way, though that's okay. Because when they engage with people like us, we help them develop that mindset. And that's it. But the way you just described it is like thinking through the process. Okay, how could we make this more accurate, faster, right? Less time spent, but still have all the controls that are necessary and legal. And we, you don't want to pay a bill automatically through AI.
No.
No, so when especially when it comes to money, so it's fantastic. And when it comes to cybersecurity, what I can tell you is we've been doing using AI and machine learning with cybersecurity long before all this, very very long. And there's no way we could do what we do without it.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. We've all seen the movie The Matrix, and they
Yeah.
like read the code, right? It's truly actually like that. Okay. So your computer, my computer right now, in just a minute, there could be like 100,000 entries of information of what's happening exactly on your computer. It could be more even. Okay. How can a human being look through all that and find a pattern? Just takes forever, impossible. So what in the past, what we'd do is we'd filter. And it's like, we're talking like 99% filter and only see a very little bit of things because if you think about it, it's better to catch things more often, maybe miss some things than to not catch things at all. With AI is a computer. It can look at all those things very, very fast and look for patterns. And so that's what happened really in the past 7 years, about 8 years now, where it was this huge shift in cybersecurity in response to the attacks, right? But it came down to in the old days, here's what antivirus did. It knew all the virus files and it would look at each file on your computer. And if it matched the database, you
I
had an
flag it. Yeah.
infection. Yeah. So today is not like that. I mean, it's still there in the background as because it's legacy. But these days we're looking at behavior. Like this app works like this. And if it changes its behavior, why? And that's a flag. And so and you can imagine how busy that is for security professionals. So AI allows us to do incredible filtering and behavioral analysis and look at more of the data. Um, it was a game changer years and years ago, and it just gets better all the time. And it's critical for cybersecurity.
And
But
it's refreshing to hear that it's also being as it I should not be surprised, but being implemented from the, cybersecurity side because all I'm always thinking of is AI being used to constantly attack and creating new ways on its own to infiltrate and
yeah,
impede, and I think there's a battle on both sides is what it sounds like.
yep. And right now we have new problems. Like for example, Black Hat just happened. Okay,
What's that?
there's a conference for hacking. It's a big one. It's a huge conference. It happens in Vegas. Happened for a very long time, and they demonstrated. They sent. Okay, so people had like their AI chatbot on their website. Okay, these hackers took a emoji. In the emoji, they encoded commands that when the AI it hit the AI in the background for that chatbot, it like reprogrammed everything it did, and so then they were able to have it like send money, refund, send free stuff. Massive, massive, massive problems. Okay, and so this is where I see the future getting a bit um, turbulent because what you have now is AI isn't just oh you can write a better email or create a great PowerPoint. We're actually seeing something called vibe coding. Basically what that means is not needing to know how to be a software developer, and you can make software.
Got it.
And you probably heard of it like Lovable
Okay.
Base
I
44.
I haven't I haven't heard of that, but I've seen some stuff marketed on social media. It's like, hey, become a coder without being a coder effectively with AI.
Yeah, like, you could go to Lovable right now, and you'd be amazed. You could build, like, an app and, you just talk at it, and it will make it. But the
Wow.
problem there is, like, years and years and years and years of best practices that are not happening when you do it like that. And, of course, companies like Lovable are working on that, and, it will get better all the time, but at the same time, there's hackers are always just looking for that gap. That
Yeah.
they're trying to exploit the vulnerability, and it's things like that. Like, for example, the chatbot and how that happened. That was implemented poorly. They should have made sure that, yeah, a chatbot can be great and do all these things, but maybe we need a human in the middle for that one bit.
Well, you see a lot of the apps being offered right now on your the chatbots, your AI agents for real estate, where they're kind of whether they're fielding the calls, sending emails, responding, and all
Mhm,
that. It's kind of I feel started with the chatbot and then going to more almost real human interaction type feelings, which I think, to your point that you just highlighted, create some vulnerabilities and exposure. Without us, I mean, I don't want to compare it to the boom that you went through in the early 90s with the personal computers and all that, but it's like, hey, we have an idea, we need to be first to market with this idea.
mhm,
We're going to patch it up from behind the scenes maybe as we go because someone
mhm,
else is going to go to market with it.
mhm.
And it sounds like we're in that right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and yeah, minimum basic launch of an app, and then worry about everything after they're getting MRR in. It's like, getting subscriptions, right? And so that, and then innocent people are going to be hurt.
Yeah.
Innocent
And
people are
it's
going to be hurt, and so the bad guys are a lot better than the good guys. It's the truth. We are tremendously good at protecting, and our clients are safe. Okay, but we have millions of things that we have to be careful, patch up, watch, monitor, blah blah blah. Okay, a hacker only needs to find one thing, one, just one, and so it's in their favor. And then the money, in 2023, cybercrime was $9 trillion GDP. Nine. Japan has a GDP of 6 trillion in the same year. So more GDP in cybercrime than a whole country, a very successful country. And so it's a very profitable business. This is why they do it. And, AI creates a whole new area of exploitation, and we're going to see a lot of it. But the technology is so good and so important that we need to lean in. There's so many IT firms. Actually, first of all, most IT firms won't even touch AI. They may like say something about it on their website or whatnot, but they're just not really geared for programming. And IT firms implement and like install things generally. They don't have a programming mindset. So there's a few of us that we're geared for AI. That's the first thing. The second is a lot of people are afraid of AI, and so they're scaring companies like yours, and I think that's a total disservice. This technology we must lean in on. Uh, your competitors are,
No, I
and
agree. There's ways to utilize it, but it's just with any good, there is bad. So
yeah,
it's you can't go into it blindly.
mhm,
I do think AI is still in its infancy as it pertains to cranking out contracts and things of that sort. So
mhm,
I have a joke with my attorney friends that I feel individuals that are using AI right now for their contracts that might be a little bit complex. Might be spending a little bit more on attorney fees 18 months from now to get out of their issues that they got into.
mhm.
And if you can't use it to cut corners, but use it to be more efficient. And I think those are two different approaches and utilizing it properly. Yeah, I agree. You have to do it, even from the small things, or sync yourself up with third party service providers that are constantly looking to implement AI to make your life a whole lot easier. Because we may not have the bandwidth to do it ourselves, but engage in a firm such as yours to make sure we're good on the cybersecurity side, who is utilizing AI to kind of help, or on the accounting software, are they implementing it? It's you can't be shut off from it, or else you're going to be you're going to be in a different industry very soon. I feel.
Yep. And, you know, I'll give you an example. We recently helped this law firm. They had a really important case they were working an appeal, criminal appeal. Okay. And they, you know, they needed to build the brief. Brief is everything in an appeal. It's 90% of the appeal.
Yeah,
Okay. And there was, I think, approximately 3,700 pages of the transcripts from the trial. And to try to find, you know, because not everybody understands, but appeals are about is about mechanical errors
yeah.
in a trial, right? And so to be able to try to cross reference the beginning to the end and every
The
with
highlighter going through.
okay, you would need a fleet of legal assistants. And even then, they're not all connected and everything. And so we were able to build an AI engine dedicated for this case. And that appeal is not done. They take a long time, but it was said by many people who looked at it, it was one of the best appeals they've ever done. And definitely plan on some coverage if said appeal gets won. I tell you that.
Oh, I'm
So,
gonna.
but it
I
went
want you to
straight
email it
through.
to me when it does. 'Cause I think that's a fascinating real time case study. That's not of public knowledge yet, but probably will be. Uh,
It will be for sure. I can tell you that, and when it hit uh, the attorney general, and then it, you know, went to the appellate court. It went like super straight through. Like usually they only respond for a long time, and it was like everything got expedited. And so, and I think that's a testimony. Obviously, brilliant
yeah,
attorneys, but the help, the help that AI can do in a scenario like that is fantastic. Be able to look up all past cases, you know, not just on the issue at hand, but the particular DA and the judge and the history and the past cases, and you'd be surprised what AI could be used in that kind of scenario.
it's
Fantastic.
what when they say when it's on the internet, it's out there forever. But now there's a tool that can comb it very quickly. Well, with that, well, I really appreciate your time and of course your support of CMA. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person up in Monterey. And I told you this would go fast, and it's already been an hour and 18. And I truly enjoyed our conversation. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Brad, absolutely fantastic. Really excited to meet you as well. And, you know, and CMA, it sounds fantastic. It sounds like very intimate group of people. Just really looking forward to it.
I love it. I think you're going to enjoy it. I'll
All
talk to
right.
you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.